Welcome to the Larkspur Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, July 25. Could we please have a roll call?
Okay. Commissioner Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Present.
Commissioner Chalmers,
Present.
and Commissioners Williamson and Swisher are absent. Do you have a quorum?
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on matter not on the agenda by anyone in the room or anyone online?
There are no hands raised in the Zoom, and no one's come up to the podium here.
Okay, right. Thank you. And then moving on, can we please have the planning director's report?
Thank you. The City Council introduced an ordinance for tenant protections at the last council meeting on July. I'm going to mess up the date, so I won't say it. And then it'll be considered in September when they have 4 council members to hear it for adoption. So it did include a rent control, as well as there was an ordinance introduced that had some additional tenant protections like eviction protections. But that's all I have to report.
Did they find a replacement council member?
I don't believe anyone's been appointed. I think it's going to be something considered at an election time.
Okay, it's going to be vacant for now.
Right.
Yeah, in that case, shall we move on to the public hearings? We have 2 matters on the agenda tonight. The first is 175 Elm Avenue, Larkspur, PLN 2236. If we could please have the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Chalmers. I don't have anything much to add to my staff report. We haven't received any public comment regarding this project. Staff recommends this project for approval. I have prepared a brief PowerPoint that includes some photos of the project that weren't in the staff report. I'm happy to share that if you all would like. If not, I would recommend the project for approval this evening based on the findings and the CEQA determination.
The question is whether or not this was a simple project and if we needed a presentation, or whether we are satisfied with what's in the report that we can approve. You're okay with it too? Okay. We still do need to hear from any public comment, and I believe from the applicant. Are you the applicant here too?
Yes, I'm Brian Robinson. My company is Robinson Landscape.
Right.
I represent the Martinez.
All right. So it sounds like we don't really have any questions for staff. So if you would like to present, we could just go straight. I think this is going to be a fairly simple matter tonight.
Yeah, do you want me just to briefly explain, or you want me to go up there? Or I'm fine.
You can, I think if you're going to speak, you should do it at the podium, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've done some work. It says on. I may have not hitting it just right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
All this way across the room.
Yeah.
We've done some landscaping work for the Martinez's a couple years ago. So got to know them a little bit. Very nice family, 2 young children. They have it in their backyard. They haven't been able to really utilize it. They've tried. I've seen a lot of different balls around a lot of different sports being thrown around the field, around the hill. So this will get it set up where they can utilize their yard for some outdoors activities, both the adults and the children and friends. And so we've worked with them on getting the design together and going through this permit process. And so we've tried to, I think the biggest thing for as far as the planning goes is that we did really want to utilize the hill and not change it any more than necessary. The play area on the lower part of the hill did not have to go exactly there, but in walking around the property and looking at the old topographic survey since replaced, we could see where it was going to be less cut and fill, and that's where we put it. And so we just try to not create any more work or not create any more potential drainage problems. So it's kind of a summary of what I wanted to say.
And how long will it take?
Let's see. I forgot to look at that today. It was a while ago I wrote that. think it's in the 3-month range.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant? No, thank you very much. Jackie, do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment?
I don't see any hands raised in the Zoom audience.
Richard Martinez. I was hoping to be able to get on Zoom. He's out of town. He wasn't sure he could.
Oh.
Spoke to him, yeah.
All right, so thank you. We'll bring it back to the commission. Any comment?
Looks fine to me. Actually, seems like a good use for the yard.
Yep, agreed. I think it seems like a fairly simple project that is going to be good for the yard. Yeah, no big impacts on neighbors for this one. So
Right, so I think we can all make the findings for the design review and of the permit, so. The slope use permit, so we can have a motion.
yes, I move to approve PLN 2236 at 175 Elm Avenue, the slope use permit and design review.
And I'll second it.
We could have a roll call, please.
Oh, well, sure.
A vote, okay.
Commissioner Chalmers,
Yes,
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Yes.
and Commissioner Campbell.
Yes,
So the motion carries, and there is a 10-day appeal period where someone would need to pay the appeal fee and submit an appeal app form to the city clerk.
thank
At this point, there hasn't been.
No,
So what happens now? We wait at that point and then go back to getting the permit.
you can apply, but this planning department can't approve it until after the 10-day appeal period has expired. Or you could wait till after the 10-day appeal period and then apply for a building permit, either way. Okay. Correct.
no, you're free to go.
Okay, well, thanks. Appreciate you guys spending some time on evening meetings. I used to think it'd be kind of nice to get on a planning commission or something like that.
No,
So thank you for your time.
I know the city council has a vacancy if you're interested.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on to the I guess the revisions to the Larkspur City Council ordinance. Sections title 18 of Larkspur Municipal Code relating to parking to facilitate electric vehicle and accessible parking spaces and to comply with Assembly Bill 2097. And with this, we have to make a recommendation to the city council.
Correct. So this is an ordinance primarily brought forward to you to incorporate new state laws. The primary purpose of the ordinance is to address new state laws that specify how the city must treat parking spaces for electric vehicle charging stations. And then there's also a new section that's proposed to deal with a new state law that says that the city can't require parking for certain developments within a half mile of public transit. And then since we're amending this section of the code, we've also included a few other items. One is to allow sites to add disabled parking, even if it reduces their parking below the minimum required, and that's in order to facilitate accessible parking for disabled. And then another recommendation is to amend the efficiency vehicle provisions to be consistent with the current California Green Building Code requirements. And then one final change that's recommended is to allow the community development director to determine parking requirements when the uses aren't listed in the code. A lot of those projects will be before the planning commission and you'll be able to consider those requirements too, but it just will make it easier for for certain applications that may not need planning commission review. We're recommending approval of recommending that you recommend approval of the ordinance to the city council. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. We do have at least one recommended change after speaking with one of the council members. And that's in section, let's see where the section of the code is. It's under section 7 of the ordinance. And under 18.56.115 D2, the last sentence to say the written findings described herein shall be made by the city. So it's the last sentence before subsection E.
There's a question on that. So what was that one sentence by itself trying to convey?
So the state law requires the city to make written findings.
Did he have to make written findings?
Right. And so what it was trying to convey that whoever was making the decision on the project, whether it's the planning director or the community development director or the planning commissioner or city council, they would make the written findings, but it could be more broad and just say city. And I think it would convey the same purpose.
Because you say up above that they can enforce the minimums if the city makes written findings. I see it says that. And then down here, then you're saying that these written findings have to be made by a particular person.
But it's, I mean, the whole sentence could be just removed. I think it wouldn't matter.
This was a question I raised, but I got confused about what was the decision maker for the project. I thought I always think of a decision maker for a project as a developer or an applicant. So that's why I had a question for like, who's making the right findings here? The written findings shall be. I mean, it sounds like we don't even need.
I don't think you really need it.
But doesn't, so it seems like the one above, notwithstanding subsection C above, blah, 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 makes a lot of sense. But then it goes down here, you have if the development dictates a minimum of 20%, then that project satisfies, then you don't have to provide parking, is that?
Right. So there's certain projects that. So this, in certain cases, the city can require parking if certain findings can be made. But we can't even do that if it's an affordable project or small enough project.
So what they're trying to say is that if these three, if the applicant or any developer applies with these 3, 1, 2, and 3, this section here no longer applies, and this section here says that that the city can enforce minimum parking requirements.
Yeah, I just think it's a bad idea, but
Right. Do we have to agree to this?
This is in the state law, so it's one of the sections that it doesn't really matter if you don't put it in the code, we have to comply with it anyway.
so for my preference, I'd rather not put it in the code.
And then if we don't have to have it in the code, but then the state, when we're looking at, when they're looking at our housing element, will say, why don't you have this in your code? And you should put it in your code. So it's proactively, but you couldn't
Yeah,
wait to do that. It's just amending the housing element is not the easiest thing to do. Or if we have to, we can include it as a program in our housing element that we never do, and then we'll get in trouble for not doing that program. So like, it's just easier to have it in our code and comply with the state law.
How about if we're just a test case?
Or you can, like the other ordinance,
No,
the other ordinance, I guess this is a good point, is you had considered the ADU ordinance and recommended not putting that section or keeping the section in the code. That you can recommend that and the city council can make the decision. The city council elected to keep the the deletion of that section that staff was recommending. So if you don't want it in the code, it's completely within your jurisdiction to recommend that to the city council.
So city council overrode us is what you're saying.
Right.
Make the recommendation and then. they can
I'd rather
override it.
have them override it.
Well, what do you think then?
I think that's okay. Yeah, I mean,
And the city attorney will be there and can offer their opinion. So
I don't-
there's nothing, there's no harm in doing that.
I don't think I have a strong opinion either way because it seems like the end result is going to be
So,
the same. So if you guys,
but in a
would
real
feel
way,
better.
just make a statement.
That's what I feel. I'd rather make the statement.
Okay, I'm actually okay with that too. We should just make the recommendation to delete subsection E,
Is it E that you have concern with?
right?
Yeah.
Correct, on that. But if it does stay in, then it should refer to subsection D2.
D2, correct.
And then, it sounds like the written findings and the reference to decision maker was a little confusing, so maybe we just delete that one sentence completely. Right above it. And was there any other questions? You had a question, I thought.
I do actually. So I'd like to know how you define public transit.
So for this particular state law, the definition they give is a major public transit is a major transit stop as defined in Public Resources Code, section 21155. There's other definitions of public transit in the state law. So this, based on like timing of buses and things like that, this one only, I believe, at this time applies to the ferry stop and the train stop.
So being within a half mile of a bus stop and the bus only comes twice a day.
Would not qualify under this state law.
How-
Some of them do apply to some of the bus stops along Highway 101, but I don't believe this one does. The ones that are more frequent.
Where does it say that?
That would be in Public Resources Code, section 21155, which I was trying to pull up on my phone, but I don't think ever loaded.
looked that up and it does say.
Okay.
15 has to come 15.
Okay,
minutes or less.
that's all I want to make sure of is that,
So it's possible that it might apply to a bus stop on on Highway 101, the one that's across from Cost Plus.
Hmm.
But because that's not mapped, I'm guessing it did not apply because I would have checked that when I did the map.
okay.
But if the bus service changes their routes and increases service, then it could apply to more areas.
Okay. And I wanted to know what an access aisle was in the accessible parking space section.
So it's like the striped aisle on the side of the parking space. And it would be, that something like that would be defined in the building code.
But just to give more room for someone.
It gives the room for someone to
Yeah.
get up to their car door or get out of their vehicle.
And then one other question I had is regarding electric vehicle spots. So do they basically take away from a regular parking spot? Because you can't park if you don't have an electric car, you can't park in them.
That's the reason why I think they made this state law, is that cities were not counting them as parking spaces because of something like that. And now they're saying we have to count them as a space that anyone could use, like not, we have to count them as a regular space.
So if you have four parking spots and one's electric, and you have, 4 employees and none of them drive electric cars, one space stays empty and they count as 4.
Correct.
Okay.
I guess I had a question along a similar line. I was looking at the electric vehicle parking section, which is 18.56.145, letter C. It's just talking about how the number of required parking spaces can be reduced at the discretion of the community development director for electric vehicle charging station and associated equipment. Is that, I mean, that seems like, is that a state requirement?
I believe
guess?
this is also in the state law,
Okay,
sorry, I don't have that wording right in front of me, but,
Page there.
oh, no, I mean, I have that. I just don't have the state law in front of me. We may have added community development director.
oh,
'Cause it
that's,
might have been more broad in the state law.
that wasn't the part I was
Yeah.
asking about. It's just the reducing the number of required spaces to accommodate for electric charging equipment, I guess. That is in the state law. I just wanted to confirm.
So basically not only is an electric car taking up a space, the equipment will take up another space.
Good, yeah, that's what I
Correct.
was getting at, yeah. Okay, I mean, to be fair, I think most of the electric spots I see have, a charging port at the back, and they don't have like, a big generator in the spot next door or something, so I'm not sure how big of an issue that actually is.
So I think from my perspective, it all pretty much makes sense.
It's that, I understand what they're doing there. Right. Do we have any more questions?
I don't think I have any more.
Should we go to public comment?
Yeah, so we have two people in the Zoom audience. One has their hand raised. I will call on, I believe it's Mr. Holmes.
James Holmes, good evening. Thank you for those questions. I think that it clarified a lot of it, and I think that it's a little bit confusing because what one literally has, subsection E is an exception to the exception in subsection D. And I guess the reason that's structured that way is to follow the statutory framework. I assume that's the case. But the one thing that occurred to me is in the purpose statement, and I'm not sure this comment would apply if the commission recommends not enacting this. But the purpose statement, I would just keep the first sentence, which says it's to implement the government code section. The other two sections say, well, we think it furthers our policies. Since this is being shoved down our throats, I would recommend not including anything other than that it's just to implement the government code. I don't think we need to say, and by the way, we think it's a good idea too, because I get the idea that we don't really think it's a good idea. So I would just keep the first sentence of the purpose clause and drop the other ones. Thank you.
Actually, on the back of Mr. Holmes's comment, can I ask a question to you, Elise?
Sure.
So in subsection F of 115, yeah, electric vehicle parking requirements says this section shall not reduce, eliminate, or preclude the enforcement shall not preclude a requirement imposed on new development located within half a mile. Are you talking about the entire section 115? Or are you just talking about 115 subsection C, which is
115
parking requirements the city shall not impose or enforce?
the whole 115.
The whole of 115, okay. So everything in 115. There's nothing in this whole of 115, so maybe we should say that because otherwise it does look like it could just be an exception that should fall under D, I guess. And you could say.
Can we
this-
just refer to the chap
you could just say this
1856-115?
section- Yeah, you could say this section 18.56.1.
Yeah. That makes sense.
You said there was a second comment on Zoom.
We have a second person in the Zoom audience, but they do not have their hand raised.
I've got another question. This is in, I guess it would be subsection D of that same. And I'm flipping back and forth here. Of 115 subsection D, which has got to be somewhere around here. Here it is. We can,
Exceptions.
yeah. So the city can present written findings. I'm just wondering how, what that would look like. So the city can present written findings to basically make developments within a half a mile of a high quality transit stop, have more parking. And I'm just wondering what those findings might look like. Is that something like we were talking about a few meetings ago for, ADUs in a fire area where we need, university level studies for that? Or
Yeah.
if that's more of a, something that could be made if there
So
was a real.
this one says supported by
need for parking.
preponderance of the evidence in the record. Oh, no, that's the other part of it. But so I guess we don't know yet because no one's probably tested this ordinance. My thought was, for example, in the Larkspur Landing area, I think that Marin Mart would have serious concerns if everyone was going to park in their parking lot from an adjacent development that had no parking, and it would ruin their business and consequently impact the city's like tax revenue. I could see that as being a finding if there was, if we could demonstrate that. But who would challenge it and how we would get challenged, I don't know. It's just hasn't been tested yet.
Got it. Okay.
So it might be a lower standard that could be met by just making simple findings.
Okay. But we really don't know at this
We kind of
point.
don't know what,
And-
at this point, HCD hasn't put out a document that says what those findings need to entail
Got it. Okay. So we don't know, and there's really no way to know, I
right at
guess.
this point, right?
Okay.
Does that matter? When it comes to it?
Well, only,
Just like now.
I mean, I think we would put
put
forth as many facts as we could to support whatever the findings, and then we wouldn't know if they're adequate enough unless someone sued us and a court determined they were inadequate. Or if it somehow precluded a housing development project and then the state could come after us for having inadequate findings, but it just at this point, I think it would be impossible to tell since no one's tested it yet.
Okay. Any more questions?
I did have one quick question on, I don't know what page it is, but under, yeah, under definitions. So seats for purposes of this chapter, 20 inches of a pew or bench will be equivalent to a seat in determining parking requirements. If there are no fixed seats, parking requirements are based on floor area. So is that for something like a church or?
Sorry, you're looking at 1856-115 definitions?
1856-020.
Oh, look at the wrongs. Oh, seats. So yeah, that's an existing definition. Sorry, what was the
Is
question?
that, I'm just curious to know, whether, is that a stadium or a church or a,
I guess
Or-
it would include, like, it could be a stadium or a church.
Okay. Or a restaurant? I mean,
Where a church might have a pew and a stadium may have a bench. Yeah, I guess a restaurant would be the same, a restaurant that had benches instead of seats. So as a way to measure benches in terms of seating.
yeah, I just didn't know why it was in there.
Yeah, and I mean, my guessing it has something to do with the parking requirements
Okay.
for gyms and churches.
Okay.
I haven't had to judge anything by seats yet.
Yeah, I guess I thought it might apply to restaurants. But
Yeah, churches, you were right, churches. The motion picture theatre, it's that simple.
Yeah,
Playhouse, auditorium, clubhouse, see there's the seats,
yeah, okay.
the restaurants. What is that? One parking space for every 4 seats, I guess that means. right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They have more parking than apartments.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, I don't have any more questions. I think I'm okay to. I think what we've agreed to do is make a couple of corrective changes and then recommend not to include.
Subsection,
Subsection E, so it's 1856.115.
Do you have your mic on? Sorry, I don't know if it's,
It is on, is it not? Hello, hello, hello.
it just sounds quiet to me.
Oh, does that make any difference? No,
I think so. I mean, I could hear you, but it didn't sound very loud,
it didn't feel that it was on to me, but.
but I,
I'll just turn it off. Yeah. But it has been on, right?
so see, under, in the ordinance, section 7. Under 18.56.115. D, the last sentence would be deleted.
I think so.
And subsection E, you're recommending that it be deleted, but if it's included, to refer to subsection D2 in the first sentence.
Yeah.
And then I have,
We had
there was
to-
one reference to a section in here. Oh, under F. This section 18.56.115 shall not reduce.
Right,
So add the section number to make it clear that it applies to the whole section.
right.
And then those are the
Those are the changes.
changes.
If you want, either of you want to do anything about the purpose. As suggested by Mr. Holmes. Or just leave it as drafted.
I think we should leave it as drafted. I mean, it's, yes, our purpose is to, yes, it's mandated by the state, and yes, our, purpose is to implement the state law, but I think that as a community, we can also appreciate the benefits that this might have, even if it's at the expense of parking, I guess. So I think that is still a valid purpose.
Yeah, I agree.
In that case, I think we're ready to make a motion.
Can you, sort of, I don't have my.
Yeah, I see. So the motion would be to recommend that the city council adopt the draft ordinance with an amendment to section 7 to delete the last sentence of subsection D. And then to recommend that the city council delete section 7, subsection E. And then under 7, But if it's included to call out that subsection E should say read subsection D2 shall not apply.
Yeah.
And then under subsection F, that it should read, or we should add the number of the section. So this section 18.56.115.
So I'll move approval of government vehicle code section 22511.2, government code section 65850.71. And section 65863.2 as amended.
Can we have a second, please?
I'll second.
Can we have a vote?
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Chalmers,
Yes.
the motion carries. And so it'll go to the city council on, I believe, August 16th, the second meeting in August for their consideration of introducing it. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the public portion of our meeting tonight.
Oh, yeah, you might not have had minutes. We did get them. We got them when I was on vacation. So if they weren't in the packet, we'll put them on for the next meeting.
So, do we have any planning commissioners reports? And we think we may not have we don't really know.
Oh, so
the
I'm
latest of the next
fairly
meeting.
sure we'll be canceling the next meeting because no items are ready to be heard. Or maybe only one. We wouldn't want to call you out just for one meet item.
Okay.
So we should know tomorrow because the notices would go out tomorrow.
Okay. And did you hear back from everyone about their attendance?
I think we have. You might be missing one person.
I don't think you have.
Okay, you're the one person we haven't heard
I'm not sure you have.
from. So we, okay,
Okay, so no then.
Maybe you have, I can't remember.
we've heard from three, maybe. 3 of the 5.
We need attendance because we're gonna lose, Max is having a baby, so I think we're gonna be down.
Didn't even know he was pregnant.
Yeah. He wasn't showing very
He
much.
doesn't show.
So yeah, we just want to make sure we have a quorum for August and September meetings. And so that we could either work around the dates and call special meetings if we need to, or because he just can't attend on Tuesday nights.
What was the September meetings? What were the dates?
Sorry, I don't have them right in front of me.
I
I might have them in email in front of me.
Oh, you're right, they were in the email, but it would be.
The 12th and the 26th.
I think I'm gonna be in the air on the way back from the UK on the 12th. Otherwise, everything's okay, I think, for me.
Okay, yeah, if you could just email Alex.
I'll look in the email.
Yeah, check
Yeah.
to make sure, because we could either, we really need to have a meeting, we could reschedule, or at least we just know to tell people that they have to wait a couple weeks.
Okay. Well, thank you. Unless there's anything else, we can have a motion to adjourn, please.
I will move to adjourn this meeting.
And I will second it.
We can all say yes to that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, commissioners. Good night, Elise.
Good night.
Good night, Jackie.